and welcome to People Managing People. I'm Becca and I'm the community manager here. If you're not already plugged into the community, we are a supportive space for experienced people managers and culture creators to develop as leaders and connect with other like-minded individuals. This community is a place for you to connect with others in similar roles, build your confidence as you iterate through your practice and approach, and develop your skills and become increasingly competent so that you can lead and manage more effectively. If you'd like to get involved, you can sign up for free at peoplemanagingpeople.com/community, and I really hope to see you there. Today, I am super excited to be interviewing one of our People Managing People experts, Anthony Clay. Anthony joined us as a speaker and panelist at the Remote Workplace Success Summit, and he is the co-founder and CEO of Indy, which is a SaaS platform that helps organizations democratize internal opportunities and networking. And he also co-founded and led Microsoft's fastest growing employee resource group, Blacklight, from 6 employees to nearly 2,000, including allies, in just 5 years, and helping to increase the tenures of Black marketers at Microsoft. He also serves as a special consultant for several large enterprises in the technology industry that are looking to create bold ERG and DEI plans. Hello, Anthony, welcome.
Hello. That was a mouthful, huh, Becca?
It sure was, but I got through it.
Yeah, you
I
did
wanted
great.
to give you all the credit you deserve.
Thank you so much. Great intro. I'm so honored to be here.
It's such a pleasure to have you here today. And we're just going to dive straight into the first question. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up and where are you based now?
Yeah, totally. So you're gonna get the full Genesis story from Anthony today. Born and raised in San Francisco, California, U.S., West Coast, and I was born into a family of all lawyers. So that was sort of an interesting dynamic to grow up in. And growing up in the Bay Area, when you have a family of all lawyers, you're kind of thinking about Silicon Valley and technology. And so my family was always sort of advocating about social justice and systems and how technology would interact with people. And again, it was very interesting and unique growing up in the Bay Area, having that kind of family upbringing. I went to the East Coast for school, loved it. I was a busy bee. I studied political science, economics, computer science, and then I went to Microsoft right out of undergraduate and was there for several years. I realized that, hey, there's a massive opportunity to create disruptive and inclusive people programs and use technology to do it. And I really saw that through the technology tools that Microsoft was building for people. And that's what led me to start Indy, which is all about really kind of bringing a disruptive lens to people, programs, and to HR. And loving it every single day. And I really do believe coming from the West Coast and a family of lawyers help put me on the path to do Indy.
Amazing. That's such an incredible background and journey to have come from. So that's really great.
Thanks, Becca.
We're going to just quickly switch into the remote working topic. Do you think that remote working is something that will stick in the future?
Oh, it's such a good question. It is such a good question. I think it is undeniable that remote work will be permanently integrated into how organizations and how employees sort of come to work. And I think what is going to stick is hybrid. I'm a big believer that hybrid is here to stay. Most organizations, if not all of them in the next 5 years, will have some kind of hybrid setup where folks can come into the office or stay and work remote for some parts of the week. I think it's been really interesting to see organizations struggle through this question and really fight that deeply ingrained human habit of in-person interaction and really sort of struggle to say, hey, can we learn something new, think about that in-person dynamic differently and go full remote, or lean back into what we've always known. What I've found to be very interesting as well, and senior leaders have been very open about this, which has been kind of cool to observe. There's a very interesting hierarchical reinforcement when you're in person, right? Just you're kind of reminded a little bit of the matrix. And so it's kind of tough when you're a senior leader and you have a big team to kind of keep in touch and keep keep tabs on how your team is really doing. And that's been a struggle as well for senior leaders. And that's really, again, been something that organizations are struggling with this hybrid versus remote dynamic, is this age-old habit of in person and that matrix and how that reinforces dynamics that people are very comfortable with. So I think hybrid is here to stick. I'm not sure about full on remote, but hybrid's definitely here to stay.
That's very interesting. What would you say? Sorry, I'm going to take a moment to formulate this question. We'll cut this out. Um, I want to ask about how, how going kind of to this hybrid role, how leaders kind of will kind of help their team like adjust to it. Does that make sense? Like as a question?
Yeah, how
Okay.
can senior leaders help their team adjust to like a hybrid world?
Yeah. Okay. Great. I'll say that.
Yeah, love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
How can leaders help their team adjust to a hybrid workplace?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it is really tricky. It's really tricky because imagine a world in which half your team is in the office on some days and the other half is in the office on other days. And what's really tricky is just that continuity and how do you really reinforce continuity. I think it's critical that leaders start to bring values to their teams that are around things like empathy and wellness and really start bringing that ethos into team culture, because I think there's no one size fits all. People's schedules are not going to align. This hybrid world is going to be a lot of building the plane as we fly it. And it's so important that teams are empathetic when there's that kind of dynamic going on where we're being agile and light on our feet. So I think the best thing, or the first thing for managers and leaders to think about is bringing ethos of empathy to the team so that understanding and being flexible for what this hybrid thing looks like, because we don't know what it will look like, but being flexible as a team is the best way to be ready and resilient.
That's really great. And what do you personally miss most about being in an office setting?
I'm a visual person, and so I mean, I can see you. So I'm a visual person, so I can see you, which is great. The camera is awesome, but I'm also someone who really absorbs energy, and really can just detect energy. And maybe n equals one, and maybe there's no one else in the world like me. So my story here is like useful for nobody else, but I'm still going to tell my story. And what I miss the most is the feeling of energy and really getting sort of the deep, authentic truth to the question, how are you? It's just really a struggle for me right now, asking folks how they are doing in this Zoom Teams world. It's, are you really okay? Are you really great? I'm only seeing like half of your torso, and is there just more, going on? Is there something deeper? And sometimes in-person energy, you can detect those subtleties in how people are doing and just get closer to true sentiment. Now, at the same time, remote has allowed for people to feel a little bit safer. There's actually safety with being remote, and that's fantastic. That's actually allowed me to have conversations that are deep with folks I never thought that I would have. But I really do miss the general feel, the general energy in person that you get, because I think you just get a lot of truth in that energy when you're in person. And I miss that. I miss that a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I can totally relate to that as well, as I'm sure many other people can. There's such an energy that you get from being around people in person. So it's definitely a challenge with remote working. We are going to take just a quick little turn here. I'd love to know more about how you got where you are today and what specifically drives you.
Yeah, there's so much. There's so many different things. I mean, I think broad strokes, just to kind of make my journey somewhat concise and useful for folks. I think mentors and advocates have played an important role in my journey at so many different stages of life. And it's interesting to call a childhood mentor an advocate, but a childhood mentor a mentor. But I've been very fortunate and very intentional about seeking out help from others, other experts, other folks who know more than me in certain realms, and really leveraging and being a sponge and soaking up feedback from those folks to learn and kind of grow in areas where I'm not necessarily the strongest. So I think that's been really, really important as mentors and advocates. And then I'm a big, and I know a lot of folks lean into this, some don't, but I'm a big believer in strengths finders. I'm a really big believer in strengths. And yes, absolutely. If there's areas for you to grow, and we all have areas where we can grow, it's worth spending time in those areas to grow. I mean, why not try to sort of be holistic and well-rounded about growth? But I'm also a big believer that everyone is unique and beautiful, and everyone's energy is really, really awesome and valuable. And leaning into those strengths and those uniquenesses, what makes you unique, is really, really powerful. It'll kind of, in and of itself, plus mentors and advocates, it'll take you to places. It'll take you in directions. And I'm also then, last thing, huge believer, and kind of these are things that are in the back of my mind, how I got to kind of where I am and what I think about along the journey to get to where I am. But also, I think it's been really important to have range, and applying range to different areas of my career has been really important. Yes, it's so, being a specialist is great and going deep into an area is fantastic, but there's also a massive need for folks to be holistic in how they approach topics. And again, a lot of problems of today's world, of today's HR discipline, are multifaceted, they're multidisciplinary. And it's really, really important to have that lens and be able to navigate the room and navigate conversations with range. And that's been really, really important for me to kind of stay resilient as the workforce changes, as new skills are required. Having range and flexibility is a really great way to. It's been really important for me in terms of getting to where I've been. And I think what drives me, I mentioned being from a family of lawyers and seeing systems. The criminal justice system is a really big system. HR and kind of people operations and how we set up culture is kind of a very big system. And systems are very powerful and they can be amazing and robust. But systems also require tweaks and tinkering and creativity. And I think about HR as such an awesome system that has so much room for disruption and creativity. And I'm a big believer in challenging the status quo. And so you bring all that together, you kind of have Indy, which is all about disrupting the status quo, about how we look at HR technology. And that really fuels me, is thinking about how powerful systems can be, but how systems also are meant to, should be broken. They should be disrupted. And that fuels me every day.
That's amazing. And you mentioned your company, Indy. I'd love to know a little bit more about how you would describe what you currently do at Indy.
Yeah, everything. We solve everything. Everything. I think the old business adage there is, if you do everything, you do nothing. What Indy, I just so proud and I just kind of get like a little choked up thinking about the mission that we have, and seeing it resonate has just been so awesome. But what the heck is Indy? Indy is all about giving folks the opportunity, equal access to opportunity to grow. And it kind of comes from a place where folks leave organizations or don't feel engaged with organizations because they're looking for the opportunity to grow new skills or to take on new kinds of projects, but they don't know where to look for those things. And typically those kinds of things are given to people who are in your network. And so if you're not in someone's network who has opportunity, what are you supposed to do if you want opportunity? You just are kind of SOL, you're out of luck. And so knowing that folks are really, really hungry to grow their skills, to meet new people, and to really develop internally, but there's no sort of access place, there's no central place for them to find that stuff. We have created that central place. And so Indy is that central hub for every organization, where you can discover mentorship, stretch projects, shadowing opportunities to sort of self-serve your own career growth. So that's what Indy's all about.
Wow, that's amazing. And huge congratulations to you on your success with it so far. And I look forward to hearing more about how you continue to grow the company.
Thanks, Becca. Appreciate it.
So how can HR professionals collect feedback from employees and gauge their engagement?
Ooh, oh my goodness! This is a 10-hour. We've got 10 hours, right? 10-hour slot, because this one is so near and dear to my heart, because I'm just a big believer. Well, one, I'm a big believer that culture and having strong culture, and culture is in some ways is an output, but having strong culture is so critical for a successful organization. I mean, if you have a great product but bad culture, maybe you can survive for a bit. But bad culture will always come back, and really can sink an organization. And having a strong culture fundamentally comes down to listening. And so listening is so critical. And listening is multifaceted, it's multi-pronged. There's not one way to listen. And that I think is so important for HR professionals and for all of us to understand is listening is multi-pronged. It's not actually just, it used to be the one-time survey a year, and now the new ethos is continuous pulse surveys. That's awesome, but that can't be the only thing. There's got to be a lot more things that you're augmenting that pulse survey with. And I'm a big believer in employee resource groups. I just think there is no cohort of employees. First of all, they are the largest concentration typically of employees from diverse backgrounds. And diversity is not monolithic. There's so much nuance in these rich communities, and they offer so much awesome perspective, just valuable, rich perspective on customers, on culture. Just such a powerful, I call it a tool, but I mean a powerful source of feedback. I'm also a big believer, HR professionals, to leverage things like councils, kind of agile task forces and councils can be a really good way, kind of at the department level typically, get a sense of what's going on in marketing, what's going on in finance, what's going on in engineering, what's going on in legal. And that just, again, helps really apply nuance to listening. And that's really critical, is to use a multi-pronged approach, use these different listening systems to really get at nuance, because it's so important that when you're listening to every single type of feedback you get. And that means looking at data and cross-tabbing that by demographic, by location, by department. Really getting at the nuanced sentiment that is in these feedback channels that I just mentioned is so critical. You've got to cross-tab your data as well. So multi-pronged approach, got to cross-tab your data, and definitely, again, multi-pronged approach, you got to do it. Got to listen in multiple places in multiple ways.
Sort of in a similar vein, how do you measure whether your employees are happy or not?
That's again, gazillion things, but let me be actionable and give you one. A big believer in this question, which I just think is so fundamental. Would you recommend this workplace to a colleague or to a friend or to kind of fill in the blank, someone in that person's network? Your kind of classic net promoter question. And I think the psychology of the question, why has that question remained a way in which we measure sentiment for all of these years? And Anthony, you're talking about disruption. Shouldn't we change that question? But the question is so beautifully constructed because it's essentially asking someone to get kind of down to their deepest core. You are putting your clout on the line, your political capital. You're going to go talk to your close friend and tell them about the workplace. And you're going to say, yo, you should go work there. It's a great place to be. That's a high stake action. And that question of would you do that is really, it gets at the heart. It really gets at the heart because, hey, are the compensation and benefits great? Pay your people more. If you're paying your people well, then you'll get, first of all, everyone is unsatisfied with that. We all should get paid more. But, you'll kind of get a little bit, okay, got it. People are happy with the pay and compensation. But this question, would you recommend the workplace? It gets so deep, and it's such a high stake sort of action, really making someone think about the clout they would put on the line. It's my favorite way. It's one of many ways, though. Just to be clear, there are a couple other ways you should think about it. Would you recommend the workplace? Obviously, things like employee engagement are really important. Other questions within a work health index there's other ways to do it as well. But I'm a really big believer in would you recommend the workplace to a friend or to a colleague?
That's a really great approach. I really like that. And kind of sticking in the same theme, how can HR use data to create a better culture? And is there a preferred metric for this?
Oh, wow. I just get excited. I just get really excited. I think preferred metric, I will get to that second, but I think the answer is absolutely I guess you asked how can, so, but if it was a yes or no question, I would say yes, absolutely. Data is it's a weapon. I know that word is strong, but it's a weapon. Data is so powerful for HR professionals. It's so powerful for us because, before you'd launch something like a mentorship program and you just kind of kept your fingers crossed that it would land. But now we can measure sentiment. There's technology tools. Even if you're using basic Google Sheets or Google Forms, you can kind of measure things. So just data, leveraging data is so important for measuring the efficacy of what we're doing as HR professionals. And I think leveraging data also brings a lot of credibility to our work. I think sometimes as HR professionals, we struggle to land insights and programs with other business leaders, and there's this push that what we're doing is, you can't quantify it, and that's so incorrect. We know that as folks in the profession, that there's so much rich analytics and data to showcase, to measure efficacy of what we're doing. So anyway, that's a long ramble of saying data, so powerful. But how do you actually do it? I think it's really, I'm going to get tactical with this one, because I think for HR professionals, making the case for headcount, for having an HR BI analyst, please go do it. These HRIS systems that we're using, these HERM systems, are so monstrous and they're collecting so many different things. So how do you get into there and actually start pulling out some insights? You just need the capability to get to the data. It's kind of a fundamental starting place for leveraging data, is getting to the data. And so making a case for headcount for an HR BI analyst, someone who can come in and do some business intelligence, is really, really just critical. So very tactical bit. How do you do it? Well, first get to the data and go hire somebody. And then secondly, I think this is where your listening systems are really important. I think it starts with a journey of listening to your employees across surveys, across the task forces, across employee resource groups, and getting a sense of the key areas that you want to go drill into. That's really, really important. You don't want to prioritize things that your employees are not articulating as pain points. And so as you start to hear sentiment across employees through your listening systems, which is a form of data, then using your HRBI analyst, start to drill into the different dynamics that you're hearing from your listening systems to get deeper. So just a little bit of a flow of how you can do it, but many different ways. And again, data is such a powerful weapon for us in HR.
Awesome. Let's talk about leaders and managers for a second. How do you personally see the role of managers in an organization?
Yeah, I've got a lot of empathy for managers. Shout out managers out there. It's tough. First of all, a fun data point, I think managers feel it, but just to quantify it for all you managers out there, the training, the hours of training has doubled in the last 5 years for managers, required training for managers. It's just really taxing to be a manager. There's just a lot on our plates, on managers' plates, just from a compliance perspective, staying compliant with workplace and legal systems. So just a lot of empathy for managers. Managers, just to throw more on the manager plate, managers are so critical. They are the frontline listening system. When you talk about a matrix and you talk about, you have your senior leaders, and then you have maybe folks that are earlier in career, but the IC, which I hate that term, but folks who are just early in their career and kind of grinding. And then you have that middle layer of manager. They are literally right in the middle of these two critical parts of your organization. And so when senior leaders who are making decisions on culture and taking action on engagement, when they're making those decisions, they need to have the best data and the best kind of feedback from employees. They have to rely on their managers for that. Because in these surveys that are very tops down that go to employees, there's a lot more nuance to what they're trying to say that managers can capture that a survey cannot. And so managers are that huge, important front-line listening system for culture and for culture orchestration. And when you're thinking about programming, it's so critical that your managers have a heartbeat on what your employees, your early in career folks are really feeling. And that's critical to actually operationalize. And what I mean by that is it's so important that senior leaders are making that a critical part of what managers do at an organization. Managers should be required to collect feedback from their team members on a very regular basis, in a regular cadence, so that senior leaders can tap into that feedback and then go make culture decisions or decisions about culture that are really tapped into what employees are feeling. So that feedback loop is really critical, and managers are the key carriers, orchestrators, facilitators. They are that massively important middle layer. But again, massive shout out and empathy for managers, because at the same time that we're asking them to carry the culture torch, we're asking them to carry the compliance torch, and we're asking them to carry the business results torch, and then we're asking them to carry the primary caregiver torch. There's just a lot of torches, and our managers need a lot of support. They need toolkits, they need best practices. And that's really, really important as well, to support our managers given how important they are.
Thank you. So during the Remote Workplace Success Summit, you gave a talk on radical empathy. And I'd love to know, what is radical empathy and why should organizations think about it?
Radical empathy. You're gonna hear me say this for forever and ever. Just so you know. So you heard it at one summit. You're gonna hear it next year. Every summit, Becca. So I want you to just get kind of ready for it. I really do believe radical empathy. It's a mindset. It's a cultural approach. It's really a never-ending practice of being super, super intentional and proactive, and going to the extreme to understand someone else's lived experience. That's what radical empathy is all about. And I say it's a mindset because we apply radical empathy at Indy. You know, everyone who's works at Indy, employee of Indy, has radical empathy. It's a deep cultural value of ours. But when we've also helped organizations embrace it as a cultural value, company value, what we've seen really get unlocked is looking at so many different things with a lens of nuance. And I talk about nuance a lot. And really what I mean is just taking a response to a survey question, for example, and unpacking it and looking at it by things like demographics and departments. And again, I mentioned that earlier in our conversation. And radical empathy, again, it really, really leads to that kind of approach, is a sort of a nuance-based approach to business, to customers, to culture. And that's so important, because there is so much opportunity, untapped opportunity in our blind spots. And only through a nuanced lens can you uncover the opportunity in your blind spots. And again, radical empathy is that mental, that mindset approach to tapping into all of the blind spot nuance, or blind spot opportunity that's there. Excuse me. So radical empathy, embrace it. It's a mindset. It's a cultural approach. It's an attitude.
Amazing. I love that. I love what you said about, and these aren't your words exactly, but kind of how it involves kind of walking a mile in somebody else's shoes and just understanding where they come from. I think that's so powerful.
100%. Well said, Becca. Yeah, Becca, you and I, we should write like a dissertation or something on radical empathy. I'm all for it if you are.
I'm here for it. Yeah. Let's do it.
Love it.
I'm just going to have a quick non-recorded break. I see we're going a little bit over time. Do you have a hard stop?
No, all good. I got 10 more minutes. I've got a wild 12 p.m. meeting. I'm good. I got 10 minutes.
Okay, great. So we'll just
fun.
keep asking a few more questions. Yeah, this is great.
How are we doing? Is the content good?
This is so good. Yeah, sorry if I'm a little bit awkward. I'm still kind of getting used to like asking these questions and everything. So the segues are a little bit.
You're being great, and thank you for making me feel so comfortable. You're doing great, Becca. Yeah,
good.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Okay, let's get into a few more questions here.
Let's rock it.
What has been the most effective initiative or change that you've ever introduced as an HR professional?
Ooh, that's a great one. That's a tough one. I want to think of something inspiring for folks. I think so. I have two come to mind. One of them, which is more of me as more of an employee versus sort of an HR professional, but starting Blacklight. And Blacklight starting this movement of employee resource groups at Microsoft. And Microsoft had employee resource groups for forever, but really showing how important they are and kind of getting a reinvigoration of employee resource groups at Microsoft. Big deal, huge deal, very proud of it. That's definitely one. But one, as an HR professional, that I'm incredibly proud of is inspiring, and doing this in my own organization, but inspiring other organizations to embrace anonymized resume screening. So to take in resumes and obfuscate things like name and photo, so that, and even some have gone to the extent of going to school. So obfuscating those details, so you're just evaluating how awesome is this candidate. I'm just looking at a resume, I'm looking at what has this person done, versus, is their name, do I like the sound of their name? They're female. I'm gender biased. I don't like it. And so just it's been really awesome. I'm very proud of those things because what a couple of these organizations, when they embraced it, they saw the diversity of their candidate pools just more than triple over the course of a few years just by embracing anonymity in screening. So, yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. I hadn't really heard that word before. It took me a second to kind of process in my mind what you were saying, but I know when I was living in Japan, I was really surprised to see that when you submit your resume, you have to submit a photo with it, which I thought was so, I mean, so wild compared to my like the culture I grew up in. But I thought, yeah, there could definitely be some biases there. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, that anon I can't say it.
Anonymize anonymity. I got you.
Anonymized in the resume, yeah, is a really, I think, a really good thing to kind of make standard practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about trends. Is there a trend right now that is blowing up that you think is going to shape the workplace in the coming years?
Oh, there's so many trends. I'm a trends person, trends guru. I think there's a lot. I think employee engagement and having employees feel connected or how connected do they feel to the organization is so critical, especially when folks are literally physically disconnected from the organization in a remote world. I think, of course, employee wellness. I'm very passionate to all the listeners. I'm very passionate about wellness, and that's, of course, a huge one as well. And wellness is multifaceted, but wellness is another big one. I'm so again for all the listeners out there. I'm a big. I've spent a lot of time kind of double clicking into systems and inclusion and equity. I'm very passionate about it. A huge focus area of mine. And so I think about the trend of gender inequality, and I think about what's happening in terms of return rates to the workforce. I think about some of the progress that we've made on pay equity in the last several years and seeing some of that progress deteriorate just given the dynamics of the pandemic. So I look at some of the economic trends that are happening, macroeconomic trends with an inclusion lens, with a nuanced lens, and some of those worry me. And I think for us, we have to just think about as HR professionals, as workplace professionals, given inclusion is not a trend, it's a movement, but given the trend of sort of slipping and more inequity because of COVID, what are we doing as professionals to ensure that that inequity doesn't happen? That if we're allowing for remote versus in-person positions, that the remote position isn't paid less than the in-person position, especially if there's an over-indexing of, let's say, women who are choosing to stay remote because of primary caregiving needs. And so just applying that kind of nuanced lens to some of these macroeconomic trends is, I'm a big believer in, and not to be somber, but that one is one I'm paying a lot of attention to, and helping actually a lot of organizations think through. And how do they think about pay packages and compensation packages given this potential inequity that we're seeing? So long answer for you, Becca.
Yeah, no, that's really great and so important. So we're going to wrap things up, but I have a very important question for you to finish things off.
What is it?
What is your favorite office snack?
Love this question. Love the question. It's such a great question. Who does? So, by the way, I'm known. People call me sugar bugs because I just love sugar. Like I love M&Ms and candy.
Mm-hmm.
So any candy, game over. Don't put it anywhere near me. It's literally game over. But I have a reputation for being a cashew person. I love cashews, salted, unsalted, whatever you name it. I'm a cashew person. So cashews in the office. Watch out. I'm coming. I'm coming.
I love it. I love cashews too, and macadamia nuts.
So good.
But they're a little bit luxurious, so can't have them every day.
Yeah, very luxurious.
Amazing. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for chatting with me today. It has been such a pleasure having you on the show, and I'm so looking forward to having you involved in the People Managing People community as an expert. You have so much value to share with our audience, so I'm excited to see what's to come. And to our audience, Anthony is a part of the community experts team. So if you'd like to learn and hear more from him, please sign up to People Managing People membership at peoplemanagingpeople.com/. See you all next time. Thanks, Anthony.
No, please. Thanks, Becca.